Welcome back to week 4 of a 6-part series, From Surviving to Thriving, where we journey with you, sharing our tools, strategies, and knowledge in the hopes of being able to serve you during this pandemic. In the previous videos, we've looked at things like stress, how our bodies naturally respond and react to stress, finding balance and nourishment between mind, body, and soul, creating routines that actually serve us, discipline and habits, capturing our vices and growing in virtue. If you missed last week's video, click on the link provided on the screen, check it out before you continue the rest of this video. And remember, this video doesn't contain the full content. For the extended video, you'll need to register using the link provided in the description box below. In this week's video, we're going to look at community, because community looks very different right now. It's really important that we acknowledge that there has been a change to the way community looks. It's also okay to grieve that change. Being able to acknowledge it helps us to get to a place where we can actually accept that this is the way things are without being stuck in a negative space about it. We're all in different types of living circumstances, and each of those different types will impact people in different ways. Why do we need community? Why is it so important to us? It's not just that men need women and women need men for the human race to survive. I mean, yes, that is one of them. We actually need each other. We need to occupy each other's space as a community. As a community, we do better and we are stronger when we're together. We were not made to be alone. Mentally and psychologically, we have a need to belong, to be understood, and to facilitate that belonging for others, to connect with other people. After all, we're social beings. Spiritually, we were made for relationship. When God creates Adam and Eve, He doesn't put them on two ends of the world and say you are never to meet. No, He places them in each other's company, but also in relationship with Him. We also don't have a God that is a higher being that's distant from us. We have a God that we get to call Father. We're His children. That tells us that there is relationship between us and Him, because that is who we were made for and how we were made, to be in relationship. Last week we talked about being made by love for love. And so spiritually, we were made for relationship. Right now, we also have a plethora of online communities to choose from. Ministries and organizations that have created platforms to be able to connect with them, their mission and their values. But a word of caution, community doesn't mean passive observation. To be an actual member of a community means more than hitting the follow or subscribe button and then watching a few videos. It actually means contributing meaningfully to that community and to the members of that community. Now that might sound like a lot of effort, and it is, because that is where relationships are built, and communities are based on relationships. That means we need to invest in time and energy into them. In this current climate that's still very foreign and that we're still trying to navigate, there is a lack of initiatives that provide this kind of actual community. And look, we're no experts there either. We're trying to navigate that space as well. But one of the decisions we made very early on was that we were not going to provide just a means for people to observe and to just watch the things that we produce. That alone just isn't enough to get from a place of surviving to thriving. That's why we've created an additional space outside of this video, so that after this you can register, be privy to an extended video, receive worksheets that you can work through that have reflective questions that are relevant to your life, and then be invited into a meeting with us where you can talk, where we can share understanding, and we can implement strategies specifically into your life so that we're actually growing in community. Because if it's true that we were made for relationships, then it's also true that we need each other to be able to thrive. And it would be completely wrong of us to suggest that all you need to do is watch a few videos and you can go from surviving to thriving. There is more than that. We need each other. We need community. This is not something that everybody is ready for right now, and that's okay. Being part of a community involves energy, effort, and time. And for a lot of people, those may be 3 things that we just don't have to give right now. That's okay too. I just hope and pray that you're able to put in some of those strategies from the previous weeks to help you get to a place where you do have the time, energy, and effort to put back into relationships. Naturally, as with any relationships, there will be certain people that we're drawn to and others not so much. And the same go for communities. So if you choose to invest in our community at VM through these programs, then wonderful. We're excited to get to meet you and to get to know you. If you opt instead for one of our comrades in the vineyard, one of the other Christian ministries and organizations, then fantastic. We're just happy that you found a community and a group of people that you can grow with and that you can journey alongside. This pandemic has certainly made physical relationship building much, much harder, but it's certainly not impossible, and we can journey with each other through technology. But in order for relationships not to go stale during this time, not only do we have to receive, but we also have to have meaningful input. So as we talk about community and relationship building, how do we apply the previous things that we have learned from the first few weeks into communities that we have around us right now? There are varying living circumstances. For some, it'll be living with family, for others with housemates, and for others will be living alone. Here's a few questions for you to consider. For those of you who live with family, have you checked in with each member of your family? It's a very small thing but can make a very big impact. Just giving someone the time and space to express their experience can make all the difference during this time. Often it's our parents who tend to hold the family unit together, but have you asked your parents, how are you holding up? And more than that, is there anything I can do to help right now? For some, these will be questions that we ask on a regular basis, and for others, this will be very uncomfortable questions to ask, foreign questions to ask of our parents. But remember, our parents are human too, and they have their own personal experience through this pandemic. Be brave enough to ask, is there a burden that I can help alleviate right now? And when they respond, be humble in accepting what it might be. Sometimes it's the very thing that you don't want to do that will be the thing that they need the most. If you're living with housemates or friends, whether they're people that you know really well or you've only just recently come to know, ask them to how their family is going. It's only natural that in times of adversity and stress, people naturally want to be closer to the people that they are generally fairly close to, which for most people is their family. And right now, if they're in a living circumstance with you, they're probably not with their family. So check in on them and take an interest in how their family is going too. If they don't generally have very close connections with family, this might even be a time where other things come to the surface. So firstly, check in on yourself to see if you are able to listen and be support for them right now. And then ask them, if you are, ask them if there is anything you can do to support them during this. If nothing else, be a listening ear for them. And if these are people that you don't know all that well, make the most of this opportunity. As uncomfortable as it may feel, you may have been in a routine where you did your thing and you came home, then you went and did your thing again the following day. But now that you're all living together, take the opportunity to grow in relationship with the people that you're living with. Take an interest in them and in their life. The common thread among all the things that I've said so far is being other-centered. It's putting someone else before ourselves. It's that kind of love that we need right now to grow in relationship, to grow in community. As this thing progresses, we'll also likely notice that some of the underlying stresses and things that were hiding underneath in any form of relationship will likely start to come to the surface. And when that happens, generally there will be some tension, there may be some conflict. This is to be expected, and it's only natural when we spend time and get to know people, when we grow in relationship with other people. As it comes to the surface, instead of thinking of it as this is my problem or this is their problem, try instead to think of it as this is a problem that needs to be worked out. Couples who are able to be in partnership, to look at anything that comes in their marriage as a problem to be solved, those couples have a better success rate because they have a commitment and a partnership that works really well, that prioritizes their relationship over any other obstacle. Similarly, when it comes to the people that we live with, that we care about, our family, our housemates, and so on, if we're able to look at whatever problem arises as just that, a problem that we need to fix, then we can have much better success rate in making the relationship work during this time. Providing, of course, that you're both able to work through that issue. It won't work if one person is committed and the other person isn't. When a grievance is aired, just remember that people respond and react differently. Just as we have different love languages, we also have different apology languages, and we also have different conflict languages, different ways that we communicate what is going on for us. In the extended video this week, we'll go into a bit more detail on that. If you're the one who needs to air a grievance, then remember your communication style and the way that you put things forward is also important. Try to make it as concise but clear as you possibly can. And at the same time, don't just leave it with what you need, but explain why you need it. We're often very quick to jump into defensive mode, and anytime we hear someone say something negative, we can take it as a personal attack. Whereas if we can explain not only what we need, but also why we need it, we can help the other person's defensiveness to come back down. Let me give you an example. For a lot of people, now is the time where frustration will start to build, needing to be able to get out of this space and not being able to. If you have someone within your living circumstances who just keeps following you, you go from your room to the lounge room to have a sit down with a cuppa and they follow you and they want to talk. You go outside into the garden for a bit of fresh air and they follow you and they want to talk. You go outside and decide to go for a walk around the block, they decide to follow you and go for a walk with you. As your frustrations increase, eventually that person might say to you, "What's wrong? What's going on?" If all we said to them was, "I need you to give me some space," that person could very easily become upset, not realizing that they have offended you or hurt you, or can become quite defensive over what's going on. Whereas instead, if we explained that this time of being alone in the home, surrounded by the same people, has become really difficult, and that we find ourselves more frustrated, we're needing some silence and some quiet time, just alone time. What we would need right now is just for some peace and quiet for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and then to come back and re-engage in that conversation. If we were to take that approach instead, the other person might be able to feel a little less defensive, but also more understanding, knowing that they're not the problem. It's just that you have a way of dealing with this situation that's a little bit different to theirs, and they can now appreciate that a little bit better. What about our pre-existing friends? And this is something that those of you who live alone can actually spend more focused energy on, especially when you don't have people that you're living with that you can grow in relationship with right now. Take stock of your friends. Most of us have hundreds of friends on social media, but how many of those people are we actually in intentional friendship with? Take time to consider who your friends are and who you want to invest in. A simple exercise like writing out a list of people that come to mind that you want to stay in contact with and that you would like to grow in friendship with during this time. Then in a second column, write down the people who have already made contact with you, the people who have already reached out to you and invested their time and energy in you. Now, as you write down this second list, take notice of whether any of those names already overlap. Does the fact that there are certain people who are already willing to invest in you change your mind about what that list of people that you originally wrote down looks like and the people that you would like to continue to invest in? Also ask yourself, who do you call friends and why do you call them your friend? What is it about them that binds you? Is it the fact that you share a class together? Is it the fact that you do stuff together? Do you have shared spirituality? Do you admire and look up to who they are? Do they hold you accountable? What are some of the things that draws you to them and them to you? Ask yourself, these things that bind me to my friend, are they actually healthy? Are they good for me and are they good for them? In last week's video, we talked about what love is. So love is not just a feeling, but it's actually willing the good of the other. But what does willing the good of the other mean? Well, it means acting in accordance with that person's ultimate end. And the ultimate end of a Christian is heaven. So acting in accordance with that. So to know if it is healthy, ask yourself, this thing that binds me to that person, is this going to lead me to heaven or not? And this thing that binds them to me, is it going to lead them to heaven or not? And in that, you will have the answer of whether this is good for you. For the sake of accountability too, let me also ask, the people that you are most in contact with right now, if you could name how much time you spend with them, ask yourself, are you spending the same amount of time that you were before the pandemic as you are now during the pandemic? If your answer is roughly about the same, then fantastic, continue on. If your answer is, I'm actually spending a lot less time, and it's not because I have an unhealthy friendship with them, then I'd ask yourself what's going on here. And is this having an impact on you? Because remember, we are social beings and we do need each other. If your answer is, I'm actually spending a significantly larger amount of time with these friends or with a friend than what I was before the pandemic, I'd ask the same question, what is going on? This time where we might have those feelings of loneliness, it's very easy for us to just turn to a friend to fill that space up real quick. Instead, I urge you to lean towards solitude, what we talked about in the earlier weeks. That intentional space where you're growing in relationship with God and being in union with Him. Focus instead on that, instead of pouring excessive number of hours into people on this earth to try and fill a void. If those excess number of hours isn't going to help you or them get to heaven, then it's not good for you or for them. And therefore, right now, it's not a healthy relationship. And lastly, as we sift through the very many number of communities and platforms that are online that are available to us, I urge you to consider which ones are a priority to you. This is a space where we can very easily get bombarded and overloaded with too much information, which is also not good for us. Going back to those things we talked about before, once we can regulate our emotions and our stress levels to come back to a neutral or as close as neutral position as possible during this pandemic, ask yourself with your mind, body, and soul, what elements would you like and do you need further nourishment to find that balance that's going to help you to go from a place of surviving to thriving? And is there spaces online that you have found so far that you can actually use to help in that nourishment process? So whatever you do, whatever community you join, choose to invest, but don't invest in hundreds. Prioritize, pick the ones that are going to serve you, pick the ones that are meaningful that you can contribute to, and invest in that. Social media and online platforms are great for connections, but we need much more to be able to build relationships. Thank you for watching this week's video. If you got something useful out of it, please let us know in the comment section below. We always love hearing from you. If you've got any questions, you can also put them in the comment section below. If you would like access to the extended video and be part of our community during this program, use the registration link in the description box below. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on next week's video. Until then, know of our ongoing love and prayers for you all.